Hydrophobia experiments is essentially another name for rabies experiments. See, rabies was originally known as hydrophobia, at least back whenever Louis Pasteur was developing his vaccine for it. The reason for this being creatures that were infected with rabies and showing symptoms of it had a strong aversion to water. The reason for this is the rabies virus causes such an intense swelling of salivary glands that it makes it hard to swallow. So if a subject tries to swallow water, they begin to choke and throw up. Ironically, the intense salivation and high body temperature makes the patient very, very thirsty, so it's a very tragic and slow way to die. However, as you probably know, rabies is most famous for the deranged nature that it gives to the people who are infected by it. Well, see, that's where these experiments come in. So rabies itself is a form of a single-strand RNA virus. Now, without getting into all the details of what that means, one of the things that it means is that it can mutate very, very easily. To put it in perspective, things like the common cold and the flu are also single-strand RNA viruses, and there's new versions of them several times a year. So the theory is, since this is not only a very scary but a very infectious and mutatable pathogen, there have been countries that have done experiments on rabies in order to make a sort of bioweapon. The reason it's referred to as hydrophobia experiments is because people infected by it, it's not exactly rabies anymore because it's been combined with the flu and syphilis and a bunch of other diseases in order to make this new disease. However, the commonality through all of them is that the patient still experiences hydrophobia, so the disease is just called hydrophobia. But you can absolutely think of it as a zombie plague because according to the theory, that's exactly what it does. There are supposed logs that exist from Russia within the 1980s and the Cold War in which Russia kind of had the idea that if anyone decided to destroy them, they would have a sort of dead man switch, that they could give a final middle finger and infect the world with this sort of zombie plague, or in this case, the hydrophobia experiment. Supposedly, the patients within these hydrophobia experiments weren't just out of their head and frothing at the mouth, but they were particularly violent, trying to kill not only each other but anyone else who was nearby, after dying 2 to 3 weeks in from dehydration. There are even theories that say during the Iraqi conflict, one of the reasons that there was so much containment measures and countries like the US were so hesitant to leave is because there had been stolen samples of the hydrophobia virus throughout the Middle East. And that one of the reasons world governments were so shady about what their involvement in the Middle East was is because they didn't want to alert worldwide panic by saying we're looking for the zombie plague. Which, to be fair, could be, kind of concerning.